Now think about Elijah. Power. And a little note makes him run. Do you think that the power that Jezebel was operating in was greater than Elijah's? No. No, she just had 400 of her prophets. Who knows that God does not have to operate within seasons? He is eternal. He doesn't have to worry about your dates, your times, your clocks, even your lifetime. He's much bigger than all of that. He lasts epochs and ages. He was here before time and he'll be here after time. But sometimes God speaks to us within time. Has anyone ever been woken up at 555 or had God speak to you with certain numbers and they just pop out of nowhere? You see them on number plates and on your clock, and then you get the important phone call at that same time. Or anyone had those experiences? So whilst God is not limited to time, he does operate within time. Just like he's not limited to Chinese or English or even Hebrew, special language. He's not limited to those particular languages, but he speaks to us in the way that we can understand. So that is the qualification for the weird thing I'm about to say. In the Chinese Zodiac Calendar, last year was the year of the dog. And last year, God spoke to me very, very clearly about certain things relating to dogs, very clearly. Namely, he spoke to me about he spoke to me about witchcraft. Don't get scared. Don't worry. We're much stronger than any little bit of witchcraft. But he spoke to me about how there was a prophecy against the person that we all like to call Jezebel, who's the witchcraft person. And we'll talk about what really witchcraft is in a moment. And how the prophecy against Jezebel was that the dogs would lick up her blood and that there would be nothing left of her. She would be unrecognizable. And so God used dogs, which in a lot of cultures, especially Middle Eastern cultures, dogs are not revered. Like we love dogs in Hong Kong, and we put little shoes on them and we walk them around in a pram. They get better treatment than most children. But in Middle Eastern culture, dogs are the lowest of the low. You don't bring them in as pets. And so the prophecy was the lowest of the low will deal with the ones that are trying to rise up and corrupt God's power and create things that are ungodly. So I think most people know that story. 1 Kings 17, 18, 19, around there. Everyone know that story? Yeah. What I didn't know was that God was telling me this 2 days before we came into the year of the dog. And I don't know about the Chinese Zodiac. I don't know about what it all means and how it all means. So it wasn't in my mind about dogs. And the person who eventually dealt with Jezebel was a guy who's my personal hero. He's not my Lord Jesus Savior, but he is my personal hero. Is a guy by the name of Jehu. And Jehu's the guy who eventually dealt with Jezebel. Elijah wasn't powerful enough. In fact, the angel said to him, "You don't have enough energy for this journey. You can't make it." So he checked out. And Elisha saw what was happening and thought, if I'm now going to have to deal with this problem, I'm going to need at least double what you're dealing with, Elijah. I'm going to need double, because he knew that Elijah couldn't deal with it. So he needed more. There wasn't enough in an Elijah mentality. But what I didn't know, that there was another Jehu in the Bible. Did anyone else know that there's another Jehu, son? The second Jehu, which we all think is of the only Jehu, is a commander of the army who's made king. And he rides like a madman, and he comes and deals with Jezebel. But the first Jehu is a prophet. And this Jehu, which I didn't know until God literally showed me, go here, read this, open that page. Did you think? Make the connection, look at the date, look at the time. And this first Jehu, who's a prophet, God says, go and prophesy against the king, an evil king, who's setting up witchcraft. He's setting up idols against Israel, even though he's an Israelite king. And prophesy against him that the dogs will eat him. They will consume him, and there will be nothing left. Now, the reason I saw this is because when Jehu comes in to deal with Jezebel, and he sees her in the tower, you remember she had the painted eyes? Yep. And she insults Jehu. She says, Jehu, who are you, Zimri? Have you come to usurp your master? Anyone know who Zimri is? I didn't know. I have no idea. Zimri is the very guy that was prophesied against by the first Jehu. So watch this. I'm giving you some context for what I want to say. Elijah, in the year of the dog, or the year before the dog, he could not deal with witchcraft. He was not powerful enough. He performs one of the greatest dramatic miracles in the Bible. The prophets of Baal are standing in front of him, 400 men. Remember, he brings the sacrifice. He says, douse it in water. Do it again. Do it a third time. He gives the Baal prophets all day to call out to their God. Is your God sleeping? Is he on the toilet? Provoking them. And they start cutting themselves, self-sacrifice. And they could not produce the sacrifice being accepted. And Elijah said, where is your God? Is he sleeping on the toilet? He says, okay, my turn. I'm going to call on the God who answers by fire. So he calls down God. Fire comes down. Powerful miracle. It consumes everything, licks up the water. Wow, God. Yay, God, as people say on the internet. Yay, God. But this is powerful. This is terrifying. The people are delivered in an instant. They see fire come down. They are delivered from that witchcraft spirit because Jezebel had control over the whole nation. That's why Elijah's so upset. And in that delivery, he marches out all proud and confident, doesn't he? And happily ever after. No. He gets a little note from Jezebel. Now, this is something that has plagued me for about 6 years. He gets a little note, and she says, I'm going to kill you. Now, he's in the same place that there are 400 prophets of Baal that are in pieces. They rip them apart, chop them up. Blood everywhere. There's still fire embers from the sacrifice that God consumed. And he gets a little note, and he runs in fear. And we say, that's the power of witchcraft. That's the power of witchcraft. And that's true. It's this psychic energy that saps your energy that you just want to run away and go and pray the suicide prayer, as Rob says. He prayed the suicide prayer, and Rob says he actually thinks he died. That's why the angels had to wake him up. Every case of suicide in the Bible, bar none, every case of suicide in the Bible is connected with witchcraft. Go and research it. That's why it's very important when Jesus is taken to, he's tempted to make bread out of stones, and he's offered the kingdoms. It's interesting that he's taken to the temple top and told to jump. Witchcraft wants you to commit suicide. And Jesus broke that power. That's why you and I don't have to jump every time we get a little bit of temptation for self-pity and, oh, I don't have enough. No, Jesus broke that power so you and I don't have to come under the spirit of suicide. Now, that's important for you because what happens next week when you meet the suicide person who's under a spiritual witchcraft and they don't know how to break free? You need to know the power and the authority in Jesus to break them free. Even if you're free already, that's wonderful for you, great, you're going to heaven anyway. But you need to know how to break that power by looking at the revelation of Jesus over other people. Do not prophesy into the future without getting the authority to carry out the prophecy. Otherwise, you're going to say a lot of stuff and not produce. We do not know the prophetic by what people say. We know the prophetic by the fruit. So when you hear revelation or you hear a story, you need to get the revelation that empowers you in the authority. Every time you see suicide in the Bible, it is connected with witchcraft. Think about Samson. Just this week, I was reading up on Samson. Amazing power. He's killed 1,000 Philistines with a jawbone. He's just this phenomenal dude. He messes up with Delilah. His hair gets cut, and now he's got his eyes plucked out, and he's just marching around in the same pattern, doing the same old thing. That's what witchcraft will do. It'll just cramp your world until eventually you just want to kill yourself. Why did Samson not, in the Dagon temple, with all the Philistine rulers there, why did he not go, where's a jawbone? Why did he push the pillars over? I didn't either. And we have to wait a few hundred years for David to pop up on the scene to sort out the Philistines. Samson had an opportunity in the power of the prophetic to deliver Israel, and he did not take it because he was under a witchcraft spirit. And even though he could take out a few hundred that were having a party, he did not deal with the problem fully. And God had empowered him to deal with the problem. So he committed suicide. And I've never seen that until this week. I've always looked at him as a hero. He was copping out. He was checking out early. It's going to get good in a moment. Don't worry, I'm not being negative. But I want you to think about it. I want you to think about the heroes that we've seen in the Bible are painted as heroes because we see the power of God. But look at true heroes like a David and like a Jesus and like a Joshua and like Elisha. Look at them being honorable with the power that's given to them. Do not look at the power that was given to people who did not fulfill the destiny that God had called them to. Because although it's great power, great power, great. No, it's not Spider-Man. I'm going to say some things on Sunday, and I don't want to bore people twice. Although there's great power, there wasn't great obedience. And your level, the level of power that you're able to operate in, is not automatically matched to the level of obedience that you operate out of. That's the choice that God gives you. And if you don't operate with the level of obedience that matches that power, you're going to end up in the wrong places. And I could talk about Elijah ending up in the place where, anyway. So the little note that's given to Elijah makes him run in fear, makes him go and pray the suicide prayer. God, just take me home. I'm only one. Even though there's 7,000, I'm only one. Poor little old me. But Jehu rides into Jezebel in person. In person. Not a little note from 100 kilometers away, whatever it was. And in person, she accuses him of something that is correct and factual. He is coming in to usurp his master. And you know what? That witchcraft goes bing, and just bounces off him. He just looks up at the eunuchs, her servants, and says, who's with me? Throw her down. And they throw her down, she's dead. God, for a year and a half, I've been looking at that connection specifically, because God only showed me that a year and a half about the Jehus. I'm saying, God, why? What's happening with Elijah? Why is that note making him run away? Are we all subject to a spirit that can come against us, and now we have to pray suicide prayers and run and commit suicide like Samson? And God said to me just a couple of weeks ago, he said, witchcraft is not without, it's within. Now, let me explain. If you have a theology, or an ideology rather, that witchcraft is without, that anyone can come and witchcraft you, woo, and do the magic spells, then every time you have a little bit of opposition and they start speaking words against you, you are going to feel that psychic energy and you're going to run away, or you're going to want to have to fight, or you are now in battle with something that's not godly. And people who look at Jezebel but don't look at Ahab don't understand how witchcraft operates. Jezebel needed an Ahab. For every Ahab, there's a Jezebel. For every Jezebel, there's an Ahab. Do not blame Jezebel. Ahab could have changed the situation. So don't think that Jezebel was there doing her spooky spells and Ahab just had to listen because she had the right voodoo pins. That's not the way it worked. He had something within him that allowed the witchcraft to operate. If he didn't allow that to operate, she would have had no influence on him. Now think about Elijah. Power. And a little note makes him run. Do you think that the power that Jezebel was operating in was greater than Elijah's? No. No, she just had 400 of her prophets. It was because he had something going on here that made him insecure, that made him open to the witchcraft, so that a little note could actually corrupt, could use what is already corrupted in him to make him run. And that's why someone who isn't a prophet, the second Jehu, just a commander of an army, he's just really good with a sword, that's all he is. Not really spiritual. The prophet comes into town and commands him to be king. He says, you're going to be king. He's like, all right, whatever. It just doesn't faze him. He's not interested. And his boys tell him, what did the prophet say? He's like, I don't know, nothing. They're like, no, tell us what he said. Oh, well, they made me king. Like it just didn't, he was so secure in being a soldier that when the king promotion came along, it didn't affect him. He was so secure. So when the witchcraft came along, there was no opening. It was just, I am who I am. I'm zealous for God. That's who I am. I don't care what people think of me. They said of Jehu, he rode like a madman. That's why he's my hero. You imagine his beard in the wind. There's an element of dealing with witchcraft that's coming against you that is about binding words and all of that. But the majority of dealing with witchcraft is here. And if you're allowing others to manipulate you, to push you around, to abuse you, to use you, to condemn you, to accuse you, to send insults your way, to control you, then you need to go, God, help me not allow that to happen. Help me to be confident enough to look like a madman sometimes, to set things on fire, so that I don't allow that stuff to push me around. Do not blame other people when you feel your life energy being sucked out of you by spiritual vampires who just want to use you because they don't know how to go to the source themselves. Do not blame them. It's not their fault. Well, it is their fault. They're responsible for them. But they're not to blame for you. Don't look at Jezebel and say, oh, Jezebel, you're horrible. Look at Ahab. Ahab. Look at Elijah. Don't blame just Jezebel. There's 3 of them in that process. Here are the dogs dealing with Jezebel. So at the beginning of this year, God said to me, Sean, you've been faithful in dealing with Jezebel in your own life. You've taken responsibility for not others pushing you around, but you've taken responsibility for your own emotions, your own security, your own jealousy, envy, victim mindset. As faithful as I can be, I'm not perfect. I'm close, but I'm not. But he said, now I'm going to teach you how to go to another level of dealing with witchcraft. So, okay, God, I love learning from you. He says, last year was the year of the dogs. We're coming into the year of the pigs. I said, God, you don't believe in the zodiac? He said, no, I don't, but I'm going to use natural timing. And I think it was within a couple of days, Bonnie and I were driving up the road in our Saikung house, which is in the bush, and we see a big fatter than me, so really fat, bush pig come out of the bush, covered in mud. Just covered in mud. And Bonnie says, oh no, the poor pig is dirty. Oh no, what's wrong? And I just laughed at her. I said, that's what pigs love. They love being in the dirt. That's where they're most comfortable. She wants to take it home and wash it. And if you wash your pig, you're just going to find the mud as quickly as you can. And God said to me in that moment, he said, Sean, the year of the dog is about dealing with witchcraft in a certain way. But the year of the pig is about keeping your peace. For a pig is happy in mud. Happy as a pig in mud. And he said to me, if you keep on operating like a Jehu, who's a madman and crazy and wants to kill Jezebel, that's all right for a time and a season. But you're going to start going into a place that makes you lose your peace. Because you need to deal with this more than you need to deal with this. So he started to show me that when... I can't go there because it's going to take too long. He started to show me some things. That you start becoming Jezebel in your dealings with Jezebel. If you don't shift into focusing... You cut those things off, like Jehu, like a madman. You don't care what anyone else thinks. You've got to be crazy to deal with witchcraft in your life. You've got to be crazy to deal with your wife who's trying to witchcraft you, or your boss, or the friend who's been your friend since childhood. You've got to be crazy to deal with that. When other people say, what are you doing? You've got to go, God has called me to deal with this. But then you need to make a shift so that now no longer are you answering by fire and throwing people out of towers. But Elisha, remember Elijah? His protege was Elisha, who had the double anointing. He's a picture of the new covenant. When Elisha's enemies came against him, an enemy of God, enemy of Israel, his servant said, look, the enemy's coming. And Elisha said, no, the more are for us than against us. Kept his peace. Whilst the mud's coming, I want to use another word, but I won't. The mud's about to hit the fan. And he keeps his peace. And he opens his servant's eyes and says, look, more are for us than against us. And you know that enemy comes in and the angels of the Lord just smash them up and kill them? No. They strike them blind so they can't see what's going on. They take them by the hand. They bring them into the city. The king, who doesn't know what's going on now, he's like, this prophet, this crazy man, has just brought in the enemies, delivered them, and they're all blind. Should we kill them? Like, just completely caught off guard. And the prophet Elisha says to him, no, sit them down, feed them, water them, and send them on their way. There's something about dealing with witchcraft like a wild man, a madman in its time. But there's another level when you learn how to deal with witchcraft in peace, where you bless your enemies and you leave room for the wrath of God. That's why when the disciples are walking along and the city rejects Jesus because they're going ahead to say, we've got the Jesus, the Christ coming in to preach. Do you want to bring him into your church? No, we don't want Jesus. They come back and say, Jesus, so we send down fire. Which I love their faith. Like they can think they can send down fire. And Jesus says, no. You're of the wrong spirit. You're of the wrong covenant. Jesus was not a picture of Elijah. He was not a picture of John the Baptist, who was a picture of Elijah. He was a picture of the new covenant. He dusted his feet and he moved on. He kept his peace. He did not engage in battles that he did not have to win because he was secure here. If you're not secure here, you need to become a madman. As soon as you become secure here, you need to become like Elisha and deal in peace. I've got so much more to say. It's so cool. But I won't. I'll be good. There's so much to say. Any questions on that? Let me answer a question or two if there are any. Otherwise, we're going to prophesy. Any questions? It doesn't matter. Yes, Heather.
Well, you just got me wondering now.
Yeah.
Whether you had revelation about what
I have an idea, but I don't know if it's right. At the beginning of... Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is just my idea. If I'm wrong, don't kill me, don't throw stones at me. I could be wrong, but this is something to read at least. In 1 Kings 17, at the beginning, Elijah says, at my word, there will be no more rain in Israel. Or he says, there will be no more rain in Israel until I say. And then the next, I think, verse 3, it says, and then God said to Elijah, go to this place and go to that place, which was the brook that dried up, which evidently is the place that Jesus got baptized. So I personally think that Elijah was trying to deal with the problem outside of the direction of God, because it does not say God said to Elijah. He said, I say. And so he must have seen the witchcraft that was happening, and he decided to go in to deal with it, but he wasn't being obedient to what God had said. And so he went down a path that brought him to the land of Sidon. And Jezebel was a daughter of the king of Sidon. She was a princess of Sidon. So whilst the Sidonian princess is sitting in Israel, leading Israel, Elijah is in Sidon. See, he tried to deal with the witchcraft outside of obedience to God, and he ended up sitting in the seat of Jezebel. He started to operate in witchcraft power, which is why I believe when he got the note, he was able to run so quickly, because he was operating in that. There was a currency he knew. Jehu was operating in obedience. He was under command. And when God promoted him, he was just under command. He didn't worry what other people were saying. That's my idea. If I'm wrong, I'm happy to be wrong. No, I'm not happy to be wrong. I'm definitely right. Any other questions? It was a good question. Why? Why are you talking about this, Sean? In the year of pigs, I believe God is going to bring us peace. He's going to bring us opportunities, like Rob has been saying, and he's going to bring us prosperity. And so you need to know the right weapons to wear for the right time. You don't walk around with AK-47s in a time of peace. That's inappropriate. In a time of war, you never leave your weapon. But in a time of peace, you don't carry weapons around unless you're American in Texas. It's an inappropriate thing, and you're not equipping yourself for the time that God's called you to. And so the reason I'm talking about that is because I feel God is shifting us into opportunistic times where, and I'll talk more about this on Sunday in a different angle, whereby it will not be certain type of fights, certain type of warfare, certain type of machinery or technology. He will bring away about new, fresh perspectives, new contexts. Seamus, do you want to share about what's happened to you beginning of this year with context, business context? Yeah. So come. We're a family business. We work very hard. If we work a 12-hour day, that's a short day for us. And I'm happy to do that. I love it. Monday mornings are my favorite, so don't feel sorry for us. But we work hard. And we've shut off certain giftings and talents as a family. I'm very entrepreneurial. I want a new idea every day. For 2 or 3 years, I've shut that down. I've stopped being creative because I've had to focus and double down on daily, consistent activities. So I've turned off creativity because that hasn't been the right gift to operate in. And I'm okay at consistency, but I'm much better at creativity. But the beginning of this year, we've seen things open up to us that we could never be consistent enough to earn.
Yeah, so at the beginning of this year, I think I mentioned a few Sundays ago, I sat in a meeting with a justice of peace, incredible. They planned a trip within half an hour. I didn't even know he was going to be there. I had an idea, and I thought, it would be nice to talk to this group of people. I didn't know who was going to come, but nice to talk to this family and their friends about an idea I have. And within half an hour, it was planned, ready to go. It's Saturday, 8:30 at night. And I just thought, wow. And I felt at that moment, I even said it in the room. I said, it's not how hard you work, it's who you work with. Yeah. And I felt God was saying that to me. But that really resonated with me. And then just last week, I had bought my, we'd got something for my parents. It was a solar panels. So in Hong Kong, there's all these things going on. I had no about it. I had no idea. I walked past a shop and I saw this opportunity, spoke to a man, and I thought, makes sense. Let's just do it. And he said to me, if you can bring anybody else, I'd be very interested to meet them. And I thought, wow, I'd like to work with this guy. I really like him. I went away, and just 2 nights ago, I was thinking about it. How can we work with this guy? And someone popped in my head. So I WhatsApped him that night, and he's an estate agent. He's worked in Sai Kung, our area, for 20 years, has all these contacts. And I said, would you want to work with me with the solar guy? Maybe we can bring more solar power to Sai Kung. Little old me. I don't know anything about I don't even know how solar power works. You know, I just think it's good. So I meet with this guy, and then 2 hours later I meet with the other guy, and they're all going, yes. And they're all saying, we want you to work with us. You're going to be the manager, and you're going to help us do. And I'm going, wow. Like, I'm unqualified, I'm unexperienced, but everyone in the room is just nodding their heads saying, this is a great idea, a lot of potential, a lot of money, a lot of people that's going to be helped, and the government's paying for it all. Yeah. Everyone's winning. And I just feel like what Sean's mentioning tonight about that inner thing, that had to, what God had said to me had to resonate with me. And we've shut off things for years. We've looked at opportunities and gone, maybe someone else would do that. And we've played with ideas. We've always put it on the back burner. And this year, I feel like there's a green light. Yeah. And it's easy. Yeah. This year, it's so easy because he's gonna bring to fruition the opportunities. He's going to put things in your head that you just, I don't know how to do that. And that's just, you're going to meet the right people and the opportunities are going to come about. And so I just really feel like what you're saying is, again, pigs. It's just that lucky, that fruitfulness happy, peaceful.
Yeah. Wonderful. One of the dangers of coming into this peaceful time is that you want to keep fighting with the old weapons. So you and I need to be very, very obedient to where God's calling us to and where he's not calling us to, so that you don't get caught up in old battles. So that if you're an English teacher, that you don't just stay English teaching. Maybe God's calling you to work in solar. But to be open to those new opportunities, because there's things that God can do that you could never do in 100 years. And you've got to be grateful in your consistencies. You've got to be grateful, like Rob's been saying, in the preparation. Do not despise those days of just slogging it out day after day and you just stepping it out. But when God gives you the opportunity, don't hanker over or after the old days of just a little bit, just treading out the grain. You've got to hanker after whatever God is showing you, not whether it's an opportunity or not. So if he's showing you new things, take them. That's why I was aggressive tonight with, this is your time to prophesy. I'm going to prophesy again. Because every prophecy starts with a word, and then it has to end with a works. If there's no works, the word means nothing. Everyone's got an idea. Everyone can prophesy. That means nothing if you're just speaking the word. You need to work the word or it counts for nothing. Faith without actions is dead. But do not despise the word. You've got to speak it out. So what I want to do now is in that vein of peace, opportunity, and prosperity, financial prosperity, relational prosperity, ease, where relationships have been difficult in the past, that they just come right, and you don't even know how. They just come right, where you just take that one little single line that God drops into your heart. You have nothing else to say, but you're going to say the line that God gives you, and it unlocks the situation. And peace will just come, and you operate out of that peace. And it's going to set us up for some great things that are coming.